Hi, everyone. So I'm Dr. Star Shands. I will be your host for this evening, and I will be operating this webinar with my lovely Vice Chair, Dr. Vanessa Edgefor.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Vanessa Edgefor, and I am the Vice Chair for New Practitioner Network. And tonight we'll be talking about the tips and tricks of navigating your way through the pharmacy field fresh out of school. So Dr. Shands will be leading the conversation. And here we have three panelists. Would you guys like to introduce yourself?
But actually, let's hold that thought. So I would love to wait 3 more minutes just in case anyone else, because I do see the number is slowly rising. So I would like to wait until, well, I'm in Mountain Standard Time, so 6:05, just to make sure people don't miss anything. So I don't want to jump in too fast for anyone that's coming out a little late. And thank you to everyone who has registered for said webinar. Your attendance to this event is greatly appreciated. All right, so it is 6:05 Mountain Standard Time, 7:05, 8:05, and we're gonna get started. So if you missed a slight introduction, hello everyone. I'm Dr. Star Shands. I am currently serving on the board of directors of the National Pharmaceutical Association as the new practitioner network chair. I am currently an ambulatory care clinical pharmacy specialist at Gallup Indian Medical Center in Gallup, New Mexico. I'm a 2018 grad at Hampton University, where I received my PharmD. I originally started in retail pharmacy and have since started my career at Indian Health Service. And next to introduce herself will be my lovely vice chair, Dr. Vanessa Edgefor.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Vanessa Edgefor, and I am the New Practitioner Network Vice Chair for NAPHA. I am a 2018 grad from Wilkes University Nesbitt School of Pharmacy, after which I completed a PGY1 residency at Mount Sinai, St. Luke's, and Mount Sinai West hospitals in New York City. And then after that, I began practicing as a clinical staff pharmacist at the VA hospital in East Orange, New Jersey. And I'm happy to have you guys tonight. I guess I'm Alyssa.
Um, Hi everyone, my name's Alyssa Vereen, or Dr. Alyssa Vereen, and I currently work as a regulatory affairs scientist for Duke University and Duke University Health System. I also work part-time as a retail pharmacist for Walgreens Pharmacy. I started off my career in the inpatient or on the residency track and ended up transitioning my career to more industry. And I graduated from Hampton University School of Pharmacy in 2019. So hopefully I can, share some gems that you guys can take with you going forward as you transition into new practitioners.
So my name is Kathy Manungai. Right now, I'm working as a PGY1 community care pharmacy practice resident at Nationwide Children's Hospital in Columbus, Ohio. So community care is essentially pediatric ambulatory care. So it's a very non-traditional path. And I was always interested in pediatrics and underserved care. And next year, I'm going to be completing a global health fellowship down at Texas Children's Hospital. So I get to combine all the things that I love and serve the patients that I really love serving. And I'm a recent graduate, a 2020 graduate of the University of Pittsburgh School of Pharmacy.
Hi, everyone. I am Joanne Agbo, or Dr. Joanne Agbo. I am from North New Jersey. I went to school also in New Jersey, graduated in 2016 from Rutgers Ernest Mario School of Pharmacy. And after graduation, I started in retail pharmacy, and now I'm in a managed care pharmacy, and I work for Express Script, the PBM company under Cigna Corporation.
I feel like I also have to say I'm from Essex County, New Jersey as well, because it seems like there are three of us on the call right now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Hey, Kathy. All right, let me stop.
Thank you so much. Again, thank the panelists, but I will thank them again. Thank you so much for volunteering your time to talk in this space about life as a new practitioner. Attendees, please, 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 please put all questions that you have in the chat box. Any and all questions will be answered to the best of our abilities. We want this to be a real conversation. We want to answer any and all things about being a new practitioner, because being a new practitioner in pharmacy pharmacy is not that easy. And there are a lot of things personally that I wish I knew before starting my career. And I learned things along the way. So definitely, if you have any questions at all, please put them in the chat box and we will get to those questions. But we do have some questions based off the research that we've done in regards to the things that new practitioners are interested in. So please stay tuned, and hopefully this will be a very inspirational and informative conversation. So the first question that we have for the panelists would be, why did you go into pharmacy? And I'll direct that question to Dr. Vereen.
Okay. So I guess I initially went into pharmacy. Well, backstory. So when I was in middle school, my mom was like, she worked at my middle school, and they used to have all these like speakers and career days and stuff like that. So my mom's like really pressing me on, I think this was around like 6th or 7th grade. Like, what do you want to, you need to start thinking about what you want to do when you get older. And I had gone to the pharmacy pretty recently with my grandmother. And one particular time that we went to the pharmacy, there was like some type of clinic that they were having where it was like geared towards like older patients, and they just, had them like checking their blood pressure, doing like point of care testing for like their cholesterol. And, there was just like tons of people lined up, and, it was really informative. And pharmacists came from behind the counter. It was like an independent owned pharmacy. And they really were just like kind of our resource, being from a small town. Whenever anyone in our family got sick, to call over and, speak to Joe, who was the pharmacist at the time, to just ask general questions. And so I think just like that, accessibility and just that, care and just general compassion for others that he exhibited. When my mom asked me for like the millionth time, I was like, I'm going to be a pharmacist. So I just kept on saying it from 7th grade all the way until I got to, graduate in high school. I decided that, I never really looked into anything else. I was like really serious about it. And so I decided to do that. So that's kind of why I decided to be a pharmacist. At the time, I never really realized like all the different opportunities that there were within the profession of pharmacy. So I thought I was going to come back to my hometown and, just end up practicing community setting. But it wasn't until I actually got to pharmacy school where I was exposed to all the different avenues and career paths you could go into. So that's kind of my story on how like why pharmacy for me.
I could go after that because you mentioned something about a career fair, and mine is similar to that. Man, I can't remember what grade, but it had to be like elementary school sometime, maybe like 4th grade or something. So we had like a career fair at our school, and someone happened to be a pharmacist. This was before I never heard the word pharmacist. I didn't know it existed. But like she came in, I believe she worked in industry, so she came in a white coat, or maybe she worked in retail, but she came in a white coat, and she came in with a bottle of amoxicillin, I think it was, and she was just like, "Oh, I help make medicine, and like you help deliver the medicine to patients and stuff." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, this job is like so cool!" I didn't know this job existed. And at the time, I loved that, like that bubblegum amoxicillin, or like if you as a kid, like I loved that. I'm like, "Oh my god, that's my favorite medicine." Like I like this job, and like believe it or not, that took through me throughout the years. And science just happened to be my favorite subject. Chemistry was my favorite subject in high school. I was in honors chem. I loved it. Got straight A's, and I'm like, it's matching up. Like, let me just pursue that. So applying to college, I applied to like all pharmacy schools. I was like, I know it. This is what I want to do, kind of thing. And yeah, I mean, it's really a simple story, but here I am, like I don't know, 10 years later or something like that. But like, yeah, I'm happy I had that interaction like early, so I could kind of like start going on that path and kind of see if my interests align in high school and things like that. But yeah, so that's how I'm here.
My story is a little bit different, and I'll try and keep it short. I have a lot of pharmacists in my family, so I actually didn't want to go into pharmacy at all because like there were just so many pharmacists, and people were like, "Oh, you should consider this," and because I always saw it, I was just like, "No, like I'm fine." So I went to Pitt for undergrad as well, and I went to Pitt as like a pre-health sciences student. I was like, I'll take the chems and the bios, and I'll kind of figure it out as I go along. And then one of my aunt, who is a pharmacist, one of the many, I shadowed her when I went home for the summer back in New Jersey. She worked as a health system oncology pharmacist at the time, and I was able to shadow her at the hospital. I shadowed her. I shadowed the pediatric pharmacists, as well as like the IV room pharmacist, and I got to really see pharmacy, the pharmacist only didn't work in the one setting that we've all kind of touched on, like the community setting. And I knew like going into college that I wanted to work with children. So whether that was me as like a pediatrician or social work or some aspect, and I just found it so interesting how pediatric pharmacy especially was so like complex, and like working with kids was such a complex form of healthcare. So after I shadowed her that one summer, I was sold, and I knew I wanted to do peds. So it kind of just seeing that setting really just opened my eyes to all the different things pharmacists could do, or I should say a small part, because you learn so many more avenues of pharmacy. But I avoided it for a couple years, and then eventually I caved.
All right. All very, very interesting stories. It's very different how people get started on the pharmacy career path. Like, well, personally, just like for me, I was in a really bad car accident when I was 10, and it was because of a drug disease state interaction. Crazy background story. But I found out that pretty much the whole reason that we got into car accidents was because my mom was taking medication that she wasn't supposed to be taking that caused another health condition. And it was like, why didn't anyone discover this? Like, this was all because of some medication. Okay, fine. I want to know about all the medications then. And I was always interested in like the sciences and stuff. Like I liked biology. And so I was like, okay, I can do chemistry. So let's see how this works. And yeah, I found out pretty much in high school that I was sold on pharmacy. Like I was looking at everything else in the health field and nothing resonated with me. I was like, oh, this is kind of weird. I don't like it. And pharmacy just made sense. Pharmacy made sense. But thank you so much for answering those questions. Next question. I'm more so going to probably rephrase this question, but essentially, do you like the area of pharmacy you're in? Why or why not? But also, a flip to that question is why did you choose that specific area that you are working in currently? And I can start with Dr. Manungai.
Yeah, sure. So I'm doing currently practicing in pediatric ambulatory care. So as I said, I knew I always wanted to work with children. But usually when people hear about pediatric pharmacists, they think of like the NICU or the PICU. So usually it's associated with like critical care, inpatient, pharmacy practice. So it wasn't until I got to Pitts, or I got to or I was in undergrad, I should say, I joined SNAFA, and then I fell in love with underserved care. So the field in which I'm currently practicing in pediatric ambulatory care, it's not necessarily all underserved care, but I chose the hospital that I'm practicing at. I chose this specific field because I get to combine underserved care and pediatric care. So it's pediatric ambulatory care. We serve a primarily underserved patient population in Columbus, Ohio. So I go to work every day, like after working with patients, I leave happy about that fact. So that's kind of why I went into this kind of non-traditional path. And I applied to general, pediatric residencies, but I knew that this is where I really, really wanted to be because I could combine multiple things that I really loved.
Thank you so much. Dr. Agbo?
Yeah, sure. So where I am now, I actually love it. I work from home. I'm in managed care. So I don't know if you guys know, but Cigna recently bought Express Scripts. So like, tired from Express Scripts, but like really Cigna. So like, yeah, but I kind of like work for both. But yeah, it's very different because remember I started in retail, and I was in retail for about 3 years before I transitioned to where I'm now. I would say this though. So I feel like altogether, this role, I think at the end of the day, it kind of worked with my lifestyle a little bit better. I didn't know though, like at graduating college, I thought I was definitely going to be in retail, but like, after being in retail, I was like, maybe I need to find a better fit for me, for my lifestyle, for my work-life balance, all that stuff. And I found that here. It's very non-traditional. I'm not patient facing at all. I work with other pharmacists. I work with other members of the team, accounting. I work with tech coding. It's very different. I honestly didn't know a job like this existed until I kind of just was, I opened myself and decided to, get back in the job market. But it's really interesting. And I think what I like most is just very, the dynamics of it. It's just very diverse. Every day is different. It's a lot of problem solving. It's a lot of critical thinking. So, for the day to day, it keeps me on my toes, definitely.
Yes, I'll go next. So similar to Joanne, I literally love it here. I love my job. I love my job for a number of different reasons, but specifically for two main reasons. So the first one is like Joanne, I also work from home. So I love the autonomy and the flexibility in my schedule. I don't have a typical 9 to 5 or 8 to 4. Some days I only have like one meeting. Some days I have, a bunch of meetings. So I can like do other things throughout the day, which is really convenient. I can work from anywhere. So that is like definitely a perk with like traveling and doing all the things that I love and maintaining personal work-life balance and maintaining my level of self-care. I also like that I work for a nationally ranked health system and university in collaboration with one another. So I get a hybrid between clinical and industry. So even though I am a regulatory affairs scientist, I'm not the typical regulatory affairs scientist that you might think of when you think of like the fellowship route or any regulatory affairs scientist that you know. So in my role, I do get a lot of opportunities to actually flex my clinical muscles. So I don't work with patients directly, which is part of the reason why I decided to get like a part-time job working in like retail to maintain my clinical knowledge and just general drug knowledge. But mainly what I do is support the Pediatric Trials Network at Duke University in collaboration with other universities. And so basically what that is, we support like the clinical trials teams at Duke and other universities to help get new labeling indications for drugs for pediatrics. So for adults, we have a number of different indications, on label, off label, but for pediatrics, a lot of therapies they're forced to use off label because there's not a lot of data, safety, efficacy data, pharmacokinetic data surrounding the use of certain drugs. So the research that we do directly turns into and results in labeled indications for kids. So that is very rewarding. A lot of the PIs that I work with are pharmacists. So it's really nice to be able to interact with them along with physicians. We also do expanded access submissions. So I get to, when there are patients in the hospital that can't participate in clinical trials, like I actually get to submit those applications, sometimes emergency and non-emergency, to make sure that they can get the drugs that they need, to hopefully manage their condition. So it's really rewarding. And even though I can't, physically see the patients anymore since I'm not working in that inpatient setting, I work directly with those physicians, and a lot of times they come back and follow up and let us know the results of those studies. So that's really nice. So yeah, those are just like a few of the things that I love about my current role. So I think it's also like another one of those non-traditional pathways. And I don't necessarily think it's, I don't have a reason for why I chose this position. I feel like life has a funny way of kind of placing you where you're intended to be. I kind of started on a path that I felt like, I thought that I was meant to be on. And, God kind of came in and detoured my path and took me somewhere where I'm happy, where I love, and where I'm able to maintain, a really happy harmony of work-life balance.
Thank you so much to each and every one of you for explaining pretty much your why. Like, it's very much important that something as a new practitioner, I feel like everyone should keep in mind is, what is your why? Why are you here? There's a reason why you're here. So as for me, as you can see, I'm a very interactive host. So I started off in retail like Dr. Joanne. I started off in retail. I did that for the first year out of school. I just knew, if you knew me in pharmacy school, you knew I was all about retail. I didn't want to do anything else. I did not want to do anything else. I was ready to be at somebody's pharmacy, and that I was perfectly happy. I was going to get all my money and I was going to be happy. It was going to be great. And it didn't turn out like that at all. So for me, I got like 6 months in. I was like, no, this is just not the move. This is not the wave. I need to do something else. But it's hard when you feel like you put all of your eggs into the retail basket. And transitioning from one part of pharmacy to another, one career in pharmacy to another, it's not easy. It's definitely not easy as a new practitioner. It's not easy, but it can be done. Clearly, we have seen that it can be done. So that's when I decided, like Dr. Kathy, I want to work for underserved populations because SNAFA really made that clear for me. Serving the underserved was what I wanted to do. And I'm from Virginia. I'm 804, born and raised. I'm from the Richmond area. And I thought, I was going to move back to my hometown. I was going to make a difference, and it didn't work out that way. So I decided, when I looked at my rotations and what I wanted to do, I had an FDA rotation that I loved. And I also worked in the ambulatory care space as a student at local clinics near my university. And I wanted to combine the two. I wanted to work for the government in the federal sector. I wanted the money and the benefits, as well as I wanted to work in a space where I felt like I was serving an underserved population. So with that being said, that's how I managed to transition to Indian Health Service, which I absolutely love and adore. And the population out here is great. Now, next question, because I will not take up too much time, is what tools did you use to achieve the level of success that you have obtained? So what tools did you use for that? Like what tools, what tips, what action steps did you take to achieve your level of success? Dr. Joanne, would you like to go first with that question?
Sure. I would say for me, I think some of the biggest things that helped me was one, keeping an open mind and branching myself off from just pharmacy. Let me explain. So even during my retail days, I was very I went to everything. Like if there was a discussion or panel with about creatives, I was there. Business, I was there. Really, I just opened my mind to everything, and I just learned as much as I could. I made connections. I talked to people. Network, LinkedIn, like everything. And because I didn't really know where I was going, I just knew that wasn't, I wasn't going to stay at retail, like if that makes sense. I'm not really sure, but I just need to find my path. So I honestly did this for a straight, just 2 years. I'm I don't know where I'm going. And then when I was finally ready to apply and things like that, doors just opened up and things like that. So on my interview, actually, some other stuff I did, I was a volunteer for Susan G. Komen for the Cure, I was on the board for that, just other positions I had outside of work. I leveraged all of that, and the skills that I learned there, believe it or not, that was the skills during the interview that they were looking for, that I couldn't have really just gotten from the retail pharmacy. So looking at my resume, at first I'm oh my gosh, my only background is retail. At first I kind of almost talked myself out of it because there was a lot of requirements for the position. They were looking at residency. I didn't have that. They were looking at 2 years clinical experience, I didn't have that either. I'm like, but what do I have? And so, when it came down to it, I'm like, I don't have those exact requirements, but I do have all those skills and everything that I learned from these other things that I did. And yeah, and honestly, the interview, like I knocked it out of the water so much so that the interviewing process was supposed to be take place over the course of 2 weeks, and mine was on like the first day of the interview, and I was hired on the spot. So that's just how that went. So yeah, I encourage you guys, just have an open mind, think outside of the box as well. If you're still deciding, like you're not really sure where you want to be, what you want to go into, maybe you are somewhere and it's not quite right fit, just like keep open mind, explore. Don't think anything is like too out of your league. Don't think any idea is too crazy. Honestly, at the time, my first 2 years in retail, I didn't even know I could work from home as a pharmacist. I didn't even know it existed. I had to go out there and look things up and find stuff. So I'm like, and that's what I really wanted to do. And like, I went and I found it and I found my path. So I'm glad that worked out.
I think some other tools to just have in general, and I think if I'm understanding your question correctly, Star, just I think like some of the most important things you can have as a new practitioner, so not only as a student but also like after you graduate, is a very 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 solid group of mentors, because your mentors should be people who are in fields that you want to be in. They don't even have to be pharmacists. Like I have mentors who are not pharmacists. So where you want to go, where you are, and also people who know you in other aspects. So people who know you outside of pharmacy, who can like help you, articulate the person that you really are when you are trying to transition from a place to place, or even a new field of practice. So mentors are super important. Networking also. So even if it's not your mentor, like networking through organizations like SNAPA or ACCP or whatever you were involved in school, still staying involved after you graduate is super important. So of course, like with this, I was involved in SNAPA involved with SNAPA as a student, now getting involved with NAPA. And also I was involved with ACCP, and I'm keeping that connection. So I think it's just very important to remember things like those. So networking, mentors, and then also, yeah, I think I agree with what Joanne said, that there is no dream too big, because you'll surprise yourself with where you end up or what happens in your life. So definitely keep dreaming big and don't allow anyone to tell you that it's too big.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I guess I'll take the next stab to not piggyback too much and be a little bit, give you guys some more tips outside of the box. I think in terms of like tools, I feel like there's this like Disney movie that says like, everything that you need is like within you. I feel like it was maybe like The Princess and the Frog or something, like the lightning bug. I was like, oh, yeah, think like. But yeah, I think that's a good way to think about, just like tools that you need. You already have everything that you need. You were equipped with all of that, to get you in the door to pharmacy school. So you have everything that you need. Pharmacy school is equipping you with that. I think in terms of, the level of success that all of us have achieved, I would say just treating every interaction as a networking opportunity. And that's something I heard a long time ago, probably at like one of my earlier SNAFA conferences or conventions, is just treating every opportunity as a networking opportunity, whether that's somebody that you're on the elevator with, whether that is, somebody that you meet. I mean, even, I've been at SNAFA conferences where we'll go out and party afterwards, and I'll be, like at the bar, like in the club networking, just, having, not even like, handing out business cards, but just having a conversation with people, finding out where they're from, who they're connected to, and, just starting a relationship. You don't have to think of it as, this long drawn out process of networking and being, clear cut and dry. It's just a conversation, just establishing a relationship. I also think just leaning on your professional and your personal network, whether that's, people from SNAFA, your former classmates, even high school, college, pharmacy school, all those classmates. For example, the role that I'm currently in, I didn't know anyone that worked within this health system when I saw this job and knew that I wanted to apply to it. I got on LinkedIn and started looking at other people that I was connected to who worked at the institution that I work at now. And I saw one of my high school classmates was a nurse there. So I asked her, hey, we were in AP calculus and we sat right next to each other. I'm like, hey, would you mind if I use you as, as a reference, like to apply for this job? And she's like, yeah, girl, sure. If you need me to, put in a word for you or whatever. So, just leaning on your network, even outside of your pharmacy network, outside of your professional network, just people that you'd be surprised the type of opportunities they can, and the type of doors that they can open for you. Another quote that shameless plug, another quote that I got from a SNAFA conference, I think it was like the Rite Aid Leadership, I can't remember the last part of it, Rite Aid Leadership
Academy.
It was Dr. Joshua Blackwell, network or not work. So once again, just like emphasizing, that you have to go out there and you have to build those relationships on your own. Everyone's network is their own network to lean into. And then, just another quote, because I love quotes. My philosophy on life, just in general, is that we weren't placed on this earth to go through our journey on our own. There's an African proverb that I use in almost every interview that I've ever had. And it says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So that just like reemphasizes, how important networking is. One of my first leadership opportunities I ever got, and I always, get a little teary eyed when I think about, my P1 year, my first leadership opportunity I got from STAR. She was our chapter president for SNAFA, like the first leadership role I ever had. She decided she wanted me to be on her executive board and be a P1 liaison. And to this day, I consider STAR a mentor, a friend, someone I can lean in or lean on, when I'm down, and I know she's going to keep it real. And, so just like in terms of, I think there was a question about how do you find a mentor? It can be a friend. It can be someone that STAR was a couple of years ahead. Actually, she was 1 year ahead of me in school, but, STAR accomplished things that I knew that I wanted to do. She had leadership roles in SNAFA. I knew I wanted leadership roles in SNAFA. So I leaned into what STAR was doing and have had those conversations with her. When she got out into her career and started, establishing her network and moved outside of, transition outside of retail, I leaned into her to ask her how she did it because I wasn't happy with where I was. And I decided that I wanted to pivot my career as well. So I leaned into what STAR was doing, even though I had no interest at the time in going into government practice or, working for Indian Health Service. Like I still leaned in to get her experience because her opinion was valuable to me. So that's how you find mentors, networking, and that doesn't have to be in a professional or in a cut and dry setting. I think that's all I have on that. But yeah.
It's honestly too early for me to get emotional. So I will move on to the next question. But side note, Alyssa's been my mentee for a while. And I think honestly, for me to be viewed as a mentor as well as to be a mentor to someone is an honor in itself. So there's so much pride, there's so much beauty in mentoring. So we will definitely get to that because I do see there are a lot of questions in this group chat. Thank you to all attendees who have put questions in the group chat. So we will address these questions now. So first question, following up on quotes, my lovely friend and colleague, Dr. Callie-Ann Cobb, everyone's favorite quote. And go, Dr. Manungai.
Oh, I was hoping you wouldn't pick me.
I was like, I want to see what Kathy has to say. What's your favorite quote? Or
so I guess I'll say one that one of my mentors said to me is that I don't know where he got it from or if he made it up himself, but one thing he would always say to me is that you never truly learn until you fail. And this was even before like we started our mentoring relationship. It was something that he had said to me very early on. And it always stuck with me. And I feel like I've shared that same piece of advice with people who I've begun to mentor as well. And I think he was so right in that fact. And like things could be going really well, for you as a student, for you as a new practitioner. But I think everyone, whether it's early in your career, whether it's late in your career, everyone will go through growing pains, or there will be times that are not good or that are hard, and you might fail along the way. Or let me not say you might, you will fail along the way. But you learn the most about yourself and the most about the process when you do fail. So that was the first quote that popped into my mind. But he's a great person, and that's just like always stuck with me.
Joanne, do you have a quote or like a saying that you live by?
I guess like a recent quote that's kind of been in my head the past few months was, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take." Yeah. So that definitely reverberates with me because it's like what a lot of people think like, oh, what happens if something goes wrong or what I want doesn't happen, but it's like what happens if it does? Like there's the positive of you getting to where you need to be outweigh the negative that can happen, and it usually always does. Like what's the worst you can happen? Even like whether it's like you're applying to pharmacy school, like, oh, what if I don't get in? What if you do? Or you're applying to jobs, what if I don't, like what if you do? Even for me it was like, because like I said earlier, I had no sort of PBM managed care experience at all. I didn't take one class in it. I didn't have any residency in it. I didn't do any rotation in it. I was just like, I'm just about to be out here. Let me see what happens. And that I thought about that a lot. Like, oh my gosh, what if even after I get it, what if I just have no clue what I'm doing? And it's like, but I had to keep telling myself, it's like, okay, but what if you do? And what if you love it? And what if you're great at it? And I'm glad that, I stuck with that. And I remember those quotes going on the process because it's like, now I'm definitely seeing like, the fruits of that positive thinking. So that's why I love that quote.
Thank you. Definitely just not really a quote, but just something everyone needs to remember. You cannot live your life in fear or or like the fear of the unknown. It is more liberating. It's better to step out on faith to the unknown than to stay where you are and like where you're at, to stay to be comfortable with staying the same instead of stepping out into the unknown. Like you have to be willing to take risks. You have to be willing to just go out on a limb and say, hey, if it works out, great. If it doesn't, I learned a lesson. So many great questions in here, but something I've seen more than once. What are some tips for preparing to transition into a new role or career space? And another part to that question would be, how do you transition from a retail space to a non-retail space? And I can give some tips on that after Dr. Joanne. I would love to hear you again, since you've gone from retail to a non-retail space.
Yeah, like what I touched on before is definitely hone in and emphasize those transferable skills. So you have a lot of skills from your job. Like, okay, for instance, I did retail. Like, it's not just the things that's listed on paper. DUR counseling. Like, what did you really do? Like, what, what did you really do? So think of like just everything you did there, whether it's were you training people, were you problem solving, were you not disagreements, but conflict resolution amongst your coworkers, stuff like that. And then on top of that, just everything outside of that, like, are you in organizations? Are you a leader in church? Like, what do you like? What else do you do that you feel like those skills would apply? So like, don't toss that away and say like, oh well, it's not a job. Like I can't use it. Like think of everything. That you've learned on the job and off, and also in terms of like where you want to apply, where you see yourself. Yeah, and on top of those skills, like work life balance do you see yourself having? Like what kind of lifestyle? And from there, you can kind of more so hone in on the path that you really want to take and like see where you go with that. But don't think that like the job I want doesn't exist. Like definitely don't think of that. I'm pretty sure like it does somewhere. Or if not, hey, you never know. You could create it. You could be the first one. Like I've seen people go from retail and start their own business. They're nutritional coaches. They started a pharmaceutical advertising company by themselves. Like if the career path that you think that what your interest and your skills align doesn't exist, like you can create it. Like nothing really, honestly, like take it from me, like nothing is impossible. Like I've really seen, like, pretty impressive transitions. Trying to think of anything else, but I feel like the biggest thing, at least for me, was just definitely a mindset shift. Like that played a huge part. So someone said mentorship, networking, as well. Get out there, talk to people, talk to different people, talk to people in the pharmacy, talk to people outside of pharmacy, like, because there are also really non-traditional paths that, hey, you know what, a pharmacist might be of use here too. You know what I mean? Like that, you just might be the first pharmacist there that you never really thought of. So yeah, I would definitely say, like, keep open mind and try to, like, shift that mindset if that works. Yeah, I'll let you know if anything else comes up.
Okay, just to piggyback off that, because some wonderful points were made, utilize your network. Somebody works somewhere, like somebody that works somewhere that can help you get to where you need to be. Somebody, okay? And so for me, definitely when I decided I didn't want to be in retail anymore, I reached out to any and everybody that I saw that was happy in their jobs, because I wasn't. So I realized, I looked at where I want to be. I made a list of negotiables and non-negotiables. Non-negotiables, like a lunch break is non-negotiable. Like me staying and working extra hours for free 99 was non-negotiable. Like, no, I couldn't do that anymore. No. So you have to think about everything that you want in a job. I wanted a competitive salary. I wanted benefits. I wanted to serve the underserved. Those are things I wanted. Everyone in my network that I knew could help me in some type of fashion. You were getting a phone call, a DM, you were getting an email, you were getting any type of form of communication that I could find to reach you. You were getting contacted. We were going to schedule a meeting. We're going to talk about it. I don't know. I might have several conversations with you. My mentors, like, I have people like alums from my school who I reached out to, never met them a day in my life, but they were a friend of a friend of a friend that I knew. So they were getting contacted. So utilize your networks. Don't be afraid to reach out to different sites. When I found out I wanted to work with Indian Health Service, I contacted every single hospital that I could see myself working at. And the director of the hospital that I am working at now called me on a shift when I was working in retail and was like, hey, girl, you trying to get out of retail? And this was just after I had finished getting cussed out by a patient. So absolutely, I want to leave retail. So you have to do everything in your power. There is leave no stone unturned. So,
Also, LinkedIn, like everyone, you all should have a functional and updated LinkedIn profile. It is such a great tool. If you're looking for like a job and you want to see like what employees are working there, you could literally like search the job, whatever, see who's working there. You can reach out to them. I have people who like reach out to me, like I don't know them, like, oh hey, I was just interested. Can you tell me what you do or things like that? And I'm like, why didn't I do this when I was looking for a job? Like, that's such an easy thing to do. Like, duh. But LinkedIn is awesome. I recommend it.
Dr.
The last thing.
Oh, sorry, Kathy, please.
I'm sorry. The last thing I was just gonna say is, because I know you ladies left the retail setting. I was just gonna say that that the people who do work in retail and who still like find joy in it, there are people who are still needed in that setting. So
yeah,
they're very much important and very much utilized. So yeah, I was just gonna say that people who work in that setting are still very awesome too.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
I think I don't really have anything to add on to that. I think y'all did a great job covering that one. I saw we did have a question about like obtaining malpractice insurance. So I was just gonna pop in and touch on that one really quick. So in terms of malpractice insurance, I kind of do. I mean, I work part-time like in retail, so I do like face patients occasionally, but with my primary role, I wouldn't necessarily need malpractice insurance. However, I still do have it from when I worked in the clinical setting, and I do renew it annually. Um, in terms of getting malpractice insurance, there's a number of different organizations that are out there that can provide you malpractice insurance. And they're usually pretty affordable, especially as new grads. I think they have like deals for like, it's like $30 for the full year. And then after that, you just like renew it and it's like $50 annually. So it's pretty, it's relatively affordable. I think it is one of those things kind of like AAA, where it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Which is why I opted to get it when I was working primarily in the clinical or like the inpatient setting. So usually like if you're going into hospital or you're going into residency or, anywhere where you're going to be patient facing, your employer usually will provide you with some level of coverage. However, I do advocate for getting your own, just because the employer's coverage protects them, but your own coverage protects you. So if there is a lawsuit filed against, the hospital, they're going to say, okay, well, we're going to do everything in our power to, protect our, employees here. And then, after the lawsuit is, negated or everything is worked out on the health systems front, you may get a pink slip saying, you got to go, like if you were at fault for, for something in that scenario. So liability insurance or malpractice insurance provides you your own attorney in the event that you do need one. They pay the cost up to usually like $1 million or multi-million dollars worth of coverage for claims, and then they reimburse you for a lot of those attorney fees. So I do highly recommend getting that. It's it's pretty affordable. So why not? But that's my input on that.
Thank you. No, please. After you.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I think I misread your chat.
It's okay.
So there was a question about Mayplex and MPJ Preps. I was going to do a shameless Snappa plug because the Bridging the Gap chair, Victoria Aola, she put together a Snappa Academy webinar that I'm going to be leading that has to do with specifically the Mayplex and MPJ Prep. And that's going to be May 13th. So I feel like that is like a whole webinar in itself. So we will touch on that another time. But I just wanted to do that shameless plug.
Please send that info to myself and or Vanessa, as we would love to help you publicize.
Sure, I definitely will.
Thank you. Next question. And this is a question I just absolutely loved when I saw it. About, for those of us who did not complete a residency, have you considered going back to pick up a residency opportunity? Have any of you obtained board certification? Is that a desire? What other certifications have you considered as you set professional goals? As this currently relates to my life right now, I will gladly answer that question. Me personally, have I thought about going back to do a residency? No, I have not, because my hospital, I work in the ambulatory care space. I have all the opportunities to be as clinical as I want to. I am preparing to take BCPS, as this is my third year in practice. It takes you have to be working for 3 years in practice in order to be able to sit for it. So sometime in the next year or two, I plan on sitting for BCPS. Has the thought of going back and doing residency crossed my mind? Yeah, when I was trying to transition jobs, leaving retail, I did consider going back to do residency. I gave myself a deadline. If I did not meet that deadline, I was going to apply for residency. If none of the jobs that I applied for worked out, my plan was to go back and do residency. I ended up getting a job that I really liked and was passionate about. So I decided against going back and doing residency. I think residency, I did not do one, but I think residency is a wonderful opportunity if you can do that. But all is not lost if you cannot or do not choose to do a residency. You can get a staff position, inpatient or outpatient. You can work your 3 years and get BCPS, work an additional year, get BCACP or any other special certifications. It's very much possible, as I am currently going down that path right now. Dr. Joanne, did you have any points to make with that?
Yeah, definitely. definitely like also like if you've been working for some time, you could leverage the years that you've worked to kind of like, be an equivalent kind of thing. So like Dr. Starr, she worked 3 years and now she can sit for the board. I also worked 3 years of retail, so that kind of gave me some leverage. And also, I have a few friends that straight out of school, they were able to get, pretty cool positions. One is a copywriter from a pharmaceutical advertising company, like things like that, like a lot of non-traditional roles as well. There's retail, there's staff pharmacist in the hospital. Yeah, so definitely like I feel like depending on where you want to go, connections definitely help. Who definitely help could help with that. Yeah, so definitely think outside of the box if you want those like non-traditional roles. But yeah, it's definitely possible. It's definitely all is not lost. Maybe if you applied to residency and didn't get in or feel discouraged, like definitely do not feel discouraged.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to jump into the next question. I'm going to combine two questions. One of them is, do you feel like residency is necessary to work clinically? And another one was, would you recommend to do a residency or get a master's degree to increase your chances of getting a job? So the way I would answer this question is, it depends on why you're doing a residency. I feel like when I was in school, it was shoved down my throat that you do a residency to get a job. Like that's the only way to get a job in the hospital, which is not entirely true. And I discovered that I would like to do a residency for my own personal reason, which was to get more comfortable clinically, because I just felt I didn't feel as prepared as I wanted to be fresh out of school. And I wanted to get more experience outside of my API rotations. So then I did a residency. In addition to that, I also wanted to find out what I liked clinically, because I liked a lot of specialties, but I didn't know which one I would like to focus on. In addition to that, I also wanted to increase my likelihood of getting a job. So as you see there, I had 3 reasons for doing a residency. It's not entirely only to get a job, because there are people that get clinical jobs without a residency. Exhibit A, Dr. Sarshan's. Exhibit B, Dr. Joanne Agbo. So it's not impossible to get a job without a residency, but it does prepare you a lot. I would say that it's kind of like an accelerated clinical intensive training, which you would still get over time if it's stretched out over like 2-3 years, but it's just crammed into 1 or 2 years. So that's a good side about doing residency. And also you get different opportunities. You get the opportunity to do, to get a teaching certificate, to network with other residents and preceptors that you will keep in contact with over the years, and just other opportunities that you're exposed to. Now, if you're asking whether to do that or a master's degree, again, it goes back to why you're doing the residency. Residency will give you the clinical experience. Master's degree might give you the knowledge, but you might not get the full experience that you would want, but it all depends on what you want to get out of either experience. Anyone else can add to that, feel free.
Wonderful points made, Vanessa. Honestly, that is really important to keep in mind. Whether you choose to do a residency or not, all is not lost. It's not I do a residency or I don't get a job, or like you do a residency and you're guaranteed a job. Regardless, work has to be put in. Regardless, it's your network, it's the knowledge that you have, it's your skill set, all of those things. Like there are examples on this very panel: residency, non-traditional routes. We have all types of fields represented right here. And we did not all take the same path because success is not linear. So, with that being said, you take whatever path that you feel comfortable taking. You take advantage of every opportunity that is given to you, and it will work out. It may not work out how you think it will work out, but it will work out. For example, if someone told me that I would be working in the middle of the New Mexican desert, I would have been like, what? But this is where I'm supposed to be. So and I love it here. So please, your path is not supposed to look like anyone else's path, and it still is a beautiful path.
And I wanna just add a little thing. So you might be asking this question because a lot of jobs put in their job description residency preferred or residency required. Okay, so if you don't have it, you don't have to you don't have to close the job application and not apply. You can apply, but then also use the other experiences that you've had. It could be through school, your rotations, and I always tell my mentees to make the most out of their appy rotations because those are stories that you tell during the interview. Those are the people that you meet that will write your recommendation letters. So if you don't end up getting a residency, at least the experience that you had in school or on your job, the projects you were involved in, other things, research that you did, that can weigh the same way as a residency. So it's all about your complete package. Don't think residency is like the golden ticket. Give you it does give you some leverage in job applications, but it's not always the end all be all if you don't have it.
I did want to chime in real quick. I saw there were like two questions that we didn't answer, so I wanted to touch on those really quick because I know it's approaching or a little bit past our end time. So I know people want to maybe hop off of here and maybe have appies or things like that. Or I don't know, people are probably about to graduate now, but so one of the questions was advice on like work-life balance, and the other one that I want to touch on was how to keep in contact with mentors after the initial connection. So in terms of like work-life balance, I think one thing, if I had to go back and do anything differently, I probably would just, have more fun in pharmacy school. Not that I didn't have fun, but I don't know. Kathy's probably looking at me crazy like, girl, what do you mean you didn't have no fun? Because I knew you have fun in pharmacy school. But I wish I would have just like, taken advantage of like the fact that I was still in school and that I was still a student. Because like when you get to, when you start adulting and you get to real life, you can't go back, you won't be around all of your classmates in that one setting where you guys can just go out and, enjoy drinks or, get food after an exam. You won't have that time to do that anymore because everybody will be, spread all over the US and different countries and things like that after graduation. But yeah, I would say just don't place your life on pause for your career. The average lifespan is like around 78, almost 80 years. So pharmacy school is 4 years long. That's 5% of your life that you were in pharmacy school. You were a person before you came in pharmacy school. You're a person once you leave. So focus, place your emphasis on the person that you are over your job title, your accolades, your accomplishments. Because you have to prioritize yourself. You got to take your PTO, you got to take your trips. Don't let a title define who you are and the person, the person that you want to be. Find your hobbies, like do the things that you love to do, make a bucket list, start doing those things now while you are in pharmacy school, so you're in that practice of, self-care, taking care of yourself. So you don't ever end up in a position where after you graduate, you are swamped and, feeling all these like, pressures, kind of weighing down on you of, producing and getting work done. Because I think you get in that mindset of just being productive, like overly hyper productive while you're in school. And I think for me, especially, I was heavily involved in a lot of leadership opportunities, like leadership platforms, a number of different organizations. My sorority, I was like involved in that and I'm still involved in that. And so I think I kind of like fell into a bit of post-grad depression after getting out of school, not being around my friends anymore, moving to somewhere totally different from where I was used to, the dynamic being different, the demographic being different. And just kind of having this personality of, I always need to be making progress and productivity, and just realizing that, sometimes my 100% will change from day to day. When I'm sick, when I have a cold, I can't go to the gym and do the same things I can do when I'm feeling up to speed. I can run 5 miles, I can run 3 miles, in a certain time. I can't do that when I'm sick. The same thing translates to work. You won't always be productive. You have to enjoy those days where you don't have a lot of work, and just know that you're in the place that you are because you are qualified to be there. Somebody thought enough of you, and that you were in this role, for a meaning, for a purpose. So you have to kind of get out of that mindset now. I think a good time to do it is in school. Practice self-care, practice taking care of yourself and doing the things that you enjoy. So when you do transition into post-grad life, you don't fall, succumb to all of those things that can kind of weigh you down and get into that depressed state, because that's a really bad place to be in. And it's hard to pull yourself out of that once you have graduated and you're, off on your own and things like that. the next thing was how to keep in contact with mentors after initial connection. So I think it's really easy with like friends, especially when you just don't think of it so serious as like, like a job or like, just being this kind of like really professional thing. When you just think of mentorship as a relationship, just maintain it the same way you would your friendships. I don't always, check in with each one of my friends like on a daily basis. Even my best friend, I don't talk to on an everyday basis. Like, I'm really close with Kathy, and like I have a group chat with her and one of our other friends, and we don't even talk on a regular basis. There's sometimes when the chat's booming, there's sometimes when the chat is dry. But you have to, constantly, just like reach out occasionally, see how they're doing. Not just for the I hate to be one of those people, and I hate when people do this to me when they only reach out when they need something. With a mentor, you want to reach out, consistently. It doesn't have to be every day, but reach out, touch contact, see how they're doing, check in around the holidays, even if there's like a song that comes on the radio and you guys heard that together, and it makes you think of them. Just like reach out, take the time to reach out and just start that practice now so that when you do get in a position where you need something, it doesn't feel like you're being kind of like a parasite to them and you're just coming to them because you need something done right now or right then. Even for people like that are like my age, like Star, not necessarily for people that are like higher up in like upper level roles. You can connect with them on LinkedIn, but for people like that are your age or, maybe a couple of years older, met them through school or organization, I would say even like just, if it's okay with them, add them or follow them on Instagram, add them on Facebook, just keep in contact. You can wish them happy birthday on their Facebook wall, and things like that, just to kind of, show that you're interested, show that you want a relationship. So that's how I have kept in contact with mentors after the initial contact.
And we really do love to see it. Thank you so much for answering those questions. And Dr. Kathy?
Yeah, I was just going to say with the mentors that you're not super close with, I agree with checking in periodically. If you're looking for like a time frame, I would say maybe quarterly or so. So like at least like every 3 months or something like that. Like you could talk about something that you discussed during your last conversation, share your progress, and just say like, hope you're doing well. So at least like they know you're okay, and then they can also give more guidance if need be.
Thank you so much for all of these wonderful answers. I'm very much grateful to have hosted this panel. So many great points were made. In the chat box, I will be putting myself and my wonderful vice chair, Vanessa's contact information. If you have anything else that you would love answered, or you would just like any additional information whatsoever, please feel free to email us and we will get back to you as soon as possible. There's so much to learn and know about new practitioner life. You learn along the way, but there's also some major gems that can be dropped from people in your circle. Like Alyssa's my mentee. I feel like I've been mentored right now. So we love to see it. And above all else, I'm very much grateful to be the host of this webinar because all three ladies clearly have so much to say and so much to give in regards to new practitioner life. So thank you so much. And let's see, where can I find more info on the SNAFA NAPLEX webinar? Kathy, that's more so you would know more about that.
Yes. We will be posting about it soon, but it's going to be on May 13th. I'm going to be leading the webinar, and Victoria Aola will probably share it on the SNAFA website. So you can look out for it there. And then we'll also pass the information to Vanessa and Star. But I think that's a Thursday, May 13th.
Cool. Thank you so much to everyone who's tuned into this webinar. If there's something that we did not answer for you, something you'd love more clarification on, please feel free. Just put it in the chat. Oh yes, thank you, Vanessa, for putting that in the chat. Our email addresses, and everyone have a great night. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you all so much. Have
Thanks,
a great
everyone.
night.
Have a great night.
Thanks for having me.
Good night.